Welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only surviving, but thriving with the cosmic tides. Well, hello, everybody. It is so great to be here with all of you. My name's Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub. Today, we have a very special weatherman with us, Rick Merlin Levine. And Rick, it's been a while since we've been doing the Cosmic Connection. It's great to have you back on the weekly weather. And how are you doing? I know a lot of people are wondering.
Yeah, I'm doing much better. For those of you who are wondering why people are wondering, is that I've seemed to have entered into a dance with COVID, and I think I'm on the recovering end of it. And aside from feeling a little tired and being a little nasally and maybe coughing once or twice during today's recording, I'm good to go.
Rick, I'm so happy that you're feeling better, and we're so grateful that you're here with us. So I know that you're just going to continue to get better and better, and we will definitely be patient with you if you need to cough or take a break at any point during the episode today. And I know we have some really, really powerful astrology ahead of us. Before we dive into that, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is the last week to join the inner circle. So this is, we're going to be closing our doors again on Thursday. And we do that because we want to be able to really welcome the new members in and really focus on new members. So we just open the doors for a few weeks and then we close them again. So this is going to be your last chance to join this time around. And Rick, you were an inner circle astrologer with us. Can you tell us about your experience as an inner circle astrologer teacher and the community itself, and just how you feel it's maybe different than other programs that students can join online?
Well, actually, I can share this from 2 points of view, one from being an inner circle guide and another from actually simply watching and being a part of a number of other inner circle guides and getting their juice. And that's really the magic of this. I don't know of any other program on the internet even that allows people to actually have during the year 12 different people, each who are capable of sustaining being a guide for an entire year, and yet for a month actually interact in a very deep way. I know that the first time I did it, I was actually rather surprised by how demanding it was of the guides, because it wasn't just a matter of going online once or twice and saying what's up. It's interacting with the people and it's creating ritual, and it's really a deep dive mostly into the lunation cycles, into the new moon, full moon, but it's really into the astrology of that entire month. And to be able to do that for a year through 12 different sets of eyes, I think it was Marcel Proust who once wrote that the only true journey is seeing the same place through many different eyes. And that's what this kind of gives you the advantage of doing. So I'm down with it. I think it's a cool thing.
Wow, amazing. I love that quote. That's so good and so true. And it is really one of the things that our members value the most, is that they get to learn astrology from many different perspectives. And like you said, the teachers that we have are of the highest caliber. So they could be teaching a whole year on their own. And yet we get this real deep, intimate experience with each one of them. And it is really, like you said, there's ritual. It's very embodied. It's like getting to work with astrology, but in astrology.
And there's also a lovely interactivity that a lot of other classes on the internet just don't have.
Yes, I always love when the astrologers reflect back how surprised they were at how engaged the students are. And I love to use the word earnest. There's an earnestness, there's a sincerity to our community and the students and the way that they engage with astrology.
Well, and let me put it this way: being an inner guide, the way that you guys at the Astrology Hub have it set up, there's no way that an inner guide can just be casually participative. they're fully involved
Yes.
because of the entire structure of what you give the inner circle guides. There's no casualness to it. It's deep.
It's deep, it's intimate, and yes, and it is a full experience. So we would love to have any of you that are considering joining the inner circle. Now is definitely the time. We open enrollment twice a year, and we are closing doors this week. So if you want to check it out and dive in and see if it's right for you, this would be a great moment to do that. It's astrologyhub.com/innercircle22, and we can't wait to see you on the inside. All right. So Rick, I know we have a huge week. Let's talk about it.
We kind of have a huge month that began really rather confusingly gentle. And I don't mean it was gentle, but it was like I wrote at the beginning of the month, June enters hesitantly, yet builds to a crescendo that can change everything by the end of the month.
Wow.
This month has already shown, and this piece was written about 2 weeks ago. This month has already shown its cosmic complexity, along with its share of violence in many ways. However, it still has much to reveal. And I think that the last week of this month and the first few days of July, I, I would say that they're unprecedented and maybe a turning point for the whole year. But quite frankly, it's a turning point. But over the next several months, I'm not sure that it gets a whole lot easier. This is like we've now entered new territory, and it's very conflictive. Not that we haven't been in conflict prior, but with the new moon in Cancer that we'll drill down on in just a few moments. That new moon in Cancer is on Tuesday, the 28th. I know what astrologers all around the net are going to be saying, and I'm going to be saying something differently.
Ooh, okay.
And as potent and powerful a new moon as this is, it really, I don't want to say it's nothing, but it's really just an opening signal for what becomes the last few days of the month while the moon is still in Cancer. Remember, this is a Cancer new moon. And while that moon is in Cancer, as it gets to the end of the degrees of Cancer, it's going to square Mars at the end of Aries, and it's going to oppose Pluto at the end of Capricorn as Mars comes to square Pluto on July 1st. And I'm not sure whether the Mars square Pluto on July 1st is going to be the most potent day, or whether the moon squaring Mars and opposing Pluto on Thursday, July 30th, the day before the Mars square Pluto, with the moon involved. In other words,
June 30th.
The moon squares Mars and Pluto on Thursday the 30th.
June 30th. Okay, great.
What did I say? I said July.
I think you said July. And I was like, whoa, we're jumping way ahead. Okay, so June 30th.
I would like to do that.
Oh no.
June 30th. And yet it's on July, too many J's, on July 1st that Mars actually squares Pluto. And that's arguably the most singular, intense aspect of the month and maybe of the summer. But the fact that the moon slides exactly into a T-square, opposing Pluto and squaring Mars, while they're less than a degree from exact, is like a very convincing statement. So let's hold off on that and work our way through the week and to that. But it does culminate. You've heard me say things before, like the most important event in 2019 is what'll happen in January of 2020.
Yes.
Here we have another one of these, that the most important event in the month of June is actually July 1st, which is the Mars-Pluto square. But bringing this back to today, or back to Monday, June 27th, we actually have the moon in Gemini, which is a little bit I'd say lighter, but it's not really a light energy as much as it's an energy of mental movement, which is actually needed because we also have another significant Mars aspect. And it's interesting, the week opens on a Mars aspect and closes on a Mars aspect. And the opening Mars aspect is that Mars makes a sextile to Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius and Mars is in Aries. And Mars making that sextile to Saturn actually is I don't want to say it's an easy aspect. It's not. Mars and Saturn are the two malefics, and that doesn't mean they're bad planets. It just means they're harder to master. However, they are sextile now, which means that they're working together. And I think that this opening day of the week, Monday the 27th, gives us a bit of stability to work on. There's something here that's very real. Also, the moon moves into that aspect and it trines Saturn and sextiles Mars, meaning that the moon in Gemini picks up on harmonious aspects. And so we have something here that's very real. It may be very heavy. It may not be a lot of fun, but there's definite reality check around this because when Mars and Saturn work together, often it's organizationally strong. And so it's almost like this is a call to arms to organize and get our stuff together because we're going to need it. That's on Monday, the 27th. The other interesting thing this week is that on Tuesday, the day of the new moon, Neptune turns retrograde, and this is kind of an interesting thing that astrologers are going to make a bigger deal out of than it is, although it's a huge deal, but for a different reason. You see, when a planet turns retrograde or direct, it technically stops. The slower moving a planet goes, whether it's compared to other planets that move faster or to its own particular movement as it moves faster sometimes. But when a planet turns retrograde or direct, it slows down so much that it actually has to apparently stop to change directions. So Neptune is doing that at 25 degrees and 27 minutes of Pisces. We can say it's at 25 and a half degrees, 25 and a half degrees of Pisces. But here's the crazy thing. From mid-May all the way through the second week of August, Neptune is not more than 1/2 a degree away from that spot where it turns retrograde. In other words, a fast moving planet like Mercury is like moving like driving in a Porsche 80 miles an hour, screeching on the brakes and then putting it into reverse. That's its retrograde motion. But the slowest moving planets like Neptune and Pluto, it's like being in an 18-wheeler truck moving an inch a day and then putting it into reverse. You almost can't tell because the difference in speed is so slow. And what we need to keep in mind is that Neptune is pretty much stationary, not exact, but within 1/2 a degree from May through August. Nearly 3 months, June, July, and part of May and part of August. And so on Tuesday, the 28th, however, Neptune will officially turn retrograde, and astrologers will be coming out of the woodwork saying how important that day is for Neptune being retrograde. It is important, but it's way more important that Neptune has kind of been the focal point. This what is truth, what is delusion, what is going on. That's been the focal point for literally all month and all next month.
Okay, so question for you. So this started in mid-May and it goes through August, this Neptune basically not moving in the sky, just like
Barely moving. Yeah.
barely moving. And I always think when planets are stationary, it's almost like they're grinding on us. Like it's just like, boom, here's the energy. Just, it's very, very present.
I think of it as as it's almost like you're on that planet stationary and everything else is moving around you.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So question for you, Rick. What's the flavor of Neptune doing that? Like I know you just said what is truth, what is
Well,
illusion, what is
here's
illusion, what
the
else?
thing, and this was really kind of brought home at the Sagittarius full moon back on June 14th, I think it was. Um, and that is that at that full moon was square to Neptune. And the full moon was sextile and the sun was trine to Saturn. Neptune and Saturn are basically vying for control here. And Neptune is the planet of well, when Neptune was first discovered, every new planet discovered, the outer planets were all considered to be the end of the world. They were all terrible when they were discovered. Uranus was disruption. It had nothing to do with genius. Pluto was fascism. It had nothing to do with transformation. Neptune, when it was discovered, was delusion. It was asylum, insane asylum stuff. Neptune was misconceptions, misleading. It was not what it appears to be. But it also turns out that Neptune has a higher calling, and that higher calling is about dreams and imagination and getting fed from those things that are beyond the reality of Saturn. So we have Neptune, which is in some ways the dream world, which can be positive. I mean, it's dreams that kind of create this invisible scaffolding in our lives that we then use Saturn to build our reality on. And so Neptune is important. But when Neptune misleads us, when we use it to mislead someone else, when we use Neptune, and I heard of someone in a higher up place recently who said, yes, I believe in this fact. Yes, I think this is a fact. Yes, now I know this is a fact, and I know that's a fact, but I still think this is what happened. In other words, with Neptune, we somehow step beyond the reality check of Saturn. And so we have this dance between following our intuition and our feelings, which may or may not be based on reality. And that's the temptation of Neptune, especially as it stops. It's like the whole world, the whole human zeitgeist, consciousness, whatever, is all focused on this moment, which may or may not be what it appears to be. Now, it's interesting that into this, there is a Saturn play on Monday, which we just talked about, where Mars sextiles Saturn, giving us a bit of a reality check, whether we want it or not. And again, Mars and Saturn are difficult planets to work with often, but here they're working together to give us something that we can stand on Tuesday, we have the Neptune turning retrograde. And Tuesday morning, this is the 28th, we have the moon moving into Cancer. The moon moves into Cancer once a month. I mean, the moon moves into every sign once every month. That's what a month or a month is a cycle of the moon. But the moon moves into Cancer at 4:53 a.m. and less than about an hour later, I mean, within a few minutes of an hour later, the sun makes an exact square with Jupiter. And then the moon makes an exact square with Jupiter because the moon's coming. Remember, we're still at the beginning of summer. And so what happens here is that the first day of summer, the sun moved into Cancer, and now on the 28th, the moon moves into Cancer, and it catches up with the sun. But the sun makes a square to Jupiter, and then the moon makes a square to Jupiter just a few minutes before the new moon. And so what we have here is that the new moon at 7 degrees of Cancer is squaring Jupiter. It's a partile square. Partile means the same degree. 7 degrees of Cancer squaring Jupiter at 7 degrees of Aries. This is a very big deal, but it's a big enough deal that that's what most astrologers are going to notice and nothing else. And that's unfortunate because the something else actually tells a very important part of the story. If a new moon is square Jupiter, I mean, Jupiter, unlike Saturn and Mars, Jupiter is one of the traditional benefics. I think of it as the cosmic good guy. Now, that doesn't mean the planet is really good. It just means it's easier to work with because Jupiter brings opportunity. Jupiter brings things. Jupiter is expansive. Jupiter is opening. Jupiter is opportunistic and it's optimistic. The problem is that, unlike or in contrary to what Mae West claimed, she claimed too much of a good thing is a good thing. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And this new moon square Jupiter has a pitfall because Cancer, the new moon is in Cancer, wants to be quiet. It wants to be receptive. It wants to deal on home territory. It wants to feel safe. It wants to feel secure. Remember, Cancer is a season starting or cardinal sign, but it basically does that by creating a hard outer boundary and then nurturing, loving maternally, like on the inside of that boundary. When we're loved by a Cancer or Cancerian energy, it feels safe unless they're over manipulative. And here's the problem with the new moon square Jupiter is we can become over manipulative. We can become overconfident. We can overextend ourselves because Jupiter in Aries wants to go out. It's saying yes to a new opportunity before we even know what the opportunity is. It doesn't matter. Jupiter's ready to expand. And the conflict, the square between that and the new moon in Cancer is really what people are going to be talking about. The interesting thing, though, is that there are two other things. One of them is that as the new moon is at 7 degrees of Cancer and Jupiter is at 7 degrees of Aries, square it, Venus is at 7 degrees of Gemini. And that's, again, partile, that 7 degrees of Gemini is exactly sextile to Jupiter. Venus is the other traditional benefic. So we start the week with the two malefics in a harmonious aspect. And at the new moon the following day, we have the two benefics at a harmonious aspect. And this is saying expansion is good. That Venus in Gemini is, I can go anywhere. Let's do it. And meanwhile, that Venus in Gemini being a half of a sextile at the sign next door to the new moon, Venus in Gemini, the next sign is Cancer, the new moon in Cancer, they're not getting along at all. That new moon in Cancer is feeling pressured by Venus and Jupiter saying, this will be fine. Let's go. Let's do it. And all of that's going on. And the last thing that may be the most important, because I think it's ultimately the saving grace. And I know that most astrologers won't go here because I know what most astrologers do and don't do. And that this new moon is quintile to Mars, very closely quintile to Mars. In fact, the new moon is at 7:52 in the evening on Tuesday, the 28th. The moon quintiles Mars about a half an hour after that. That's how close that quintile is. And then the sun quintiles Mars just after midnight on Thursday, early morning. So we have that new moon quintiling Mars. And what does that mean? Well, quintiles are creative. Quintiles can be spiritual. Quintiles basically create something where there was nothing before. It's not like a square where there's conflict and then we resolve it and we create something from the tension of the conflict. In a quintile, it's more magical. We create something from nothingness. And because Mars, like Jupiter, is in Aries, the new moon quintiling Mars at home in Aries, in its domicile, it gives us a way to act without overacting. Now, remember the danger of Jupiter and the danger of Neptune, and Jupiter and Neptune are somewhat similar. Jupiter is expansive, but it only can expand to Saturn. It's inside the orbit of Saturn. Neptune is like Jupiter, that's escape from dad, from the authority, from Saturn, and Neptune can expand forever. But Jupiter and Neptune are both expansive. And so what we have here is we're being pushed all month to go beyond the facts, to reach into the realm of imagination, potential, delusion, insanity, even. And yet, it's that new moon quintiling Mars that gives us something concrete that we can actually do, that can actually change the present and change the future. And that's the thing that I think most people will be missing.
Okay, my question, Rick. So we're talking about this kind of conflicting energy, the Cancer energy wanting to be reflective and safe and nurtured.
All of that.
The Quintile energy, like you just said, wanting to be creative or creating conditions for creativity, spiritual connection, creating where there was nothing before, magic.
Magic.
And
Magic is
then
the Quintile word.
and then you have Neptune on top of that, that also kind of has that sort of energy, right? Where it's dreams and imagination and the things that we can't see and reaching beyond the obvious into the unseen realms. And then sort of versus Jupiter, meaning like this is when you were describing, I was seeing it as a little bit of a tension, because Jupiter is also asking you to sort of lean into that to the point where it could get delusional and it could get way too expansive and it could get way ungrounded, and you could find yourself making commitments or doing things that you're not ready for.
Correct.
That are too expanding of you. So my question is, which of these energies would be the best to lean into more?
Well, I'll tell you what I think, and this is also substantiated by the fact that, remember, during the new moon, Venus is going to be sextiling Jupiter, encouraging that expansion, but Venus is also quintiling Neptune. And so it's giving us this delicious attraction and taste toward forget Saturn structure, forget holding back, Cancer, being safe. I want to say, let's just blow this open, but it's not a Uranian energy. It's not a sudden, it's yeah, we can go there. We can, and how this works, it can work positive or negative. Remember, in a particular situation, what's good for you may not be good for me.
Right.
And vice versa. I mean,
Right.
but I think that what this whole process is telling us is that to be aware of the potential of the moment, but don't overreact. Don't overcommit. Don't overextend your own power. This is ultimately the new moon in Cancer. I don't want to say it's not a time to act, but it's not a time to act.
Mm.
It's a time to do the inner work, and there will be an opportunity, and that opportunity is going to come pretty damn fast because of the other scenario that is building by the end of the month. There are two things this month that kind of stand out. One of them is the complexity of this new moon with the stationary retrograde Neptune, and with Jupiter in that mix squaring the new moon, and all this encouraging, and the Venus sextile and quintile and all these things that are magical and saying, yes, we can, and we can. And yet that new moon in Cancer is saying, I think of Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Siddhartha, the main character in the book, used to say to himself, I can think, I can fast, I can wait. And there's something here about thinking. Fasting doesn't necessarily just means eating nothing. It means not taking everything in.
Yes.
And waiting. And again, this does not mean inaction. It means holding for when your action will actually be useful, rather than just a Jupiterian overstatement, overblown response that won't accomplish what one wants. And, I can think of lots of things around either personal relationships or even politically. I mean, in some ways, this holding back energy in some ways says, don't get crazy involved in something now by saying everything about everything. Instead, hold your energy and vote, when that comes up later in the year. The point is that there's something here about not wasting energy by overextending it. So I think that's the lesson of this new moon is to act subtly, act gently, and yet to allow oneself to think of the extreme potentials, because there is great possibility here, but it's not wrapped up in this moment. In this moment, overaction does more harm than good.
Oh, that's really clear. You did actually. I was thinking you'd give more of the what's right for you isn't right for me and that kind of answer, which you did. And there is
Yeah,
an
I don't
energy.
care what side of any relationship, emotional, political spectrum you're on. It still makes that advice works for everyone.
Wow. Very, very good. Okay, so we have this is basically we're on Tuesday still.
Yeah, and on
Right?
Wednesday, the moon is still in Cancer.
Uh-huh.
We're getting more Venus, interactions. And Mercury now comes into Quintile Jupiter. These are subtle. I don't even normally talk about the quintiles and septiles in transit, but they're just so powerful this week. It just tells me that more is going on than meets the eye on the surface. By Thursday, early morning, actually very late Wednesday night, depending on where you are, the sun makes that quintile with Mars. But on Thursday, this is June 30th, something else happens of extreme importance as the moon is moving through Cancer, moving ahead of the sun, moving towards latter degrees of Cancer. In fact, the moon moves from Cancer into Leo by Thursday, that's the 30th, Thursday afternoon. And it would do that at about 5:30, 5:39 exactly Pacific time. So during the day on Thursday, as the moon is moving through latter degrees of Cancer, it makes a square with Mars at latter degrees of Aries, and it makes an opposition to Pluto at latter degrees of Capricorn. And in fact, Mars makes a square with Pluto on Friday, July 1st. So that square between Mars and Pluto is exact on July 1st. Interestingly, we started the week with a sextile between Mars and Saturn. And I think Liz Green once wrote that Pluto's Saturn's only friend. They're the badass planets. I mean, and Mars certainly, as the god of war, has his own badassery, if that's such a word. But the beginning of the week, the Mars sextile Saturn said they were working together. By the end of the week, Mars square Pluto, and again, that is exact at 7:13 p.m. on Friday, at 27 degrees of Aries and Capricorn and 3/4, 27 degrees, 47 minutes for those of you who are nerdy. But even the day before on Thursday, that square between Mars and Pluto is within 1 degree. That's how close it is. It's within 1 degree when when the moon squares Mars and then opposes Pluto. The moon squares Mars and opposes Pluto while Mars is squaring Pluto. This is a T-square. This is 3 points on a grand square, if you will. And I actually think that the moon's square to Pluto and opposition to the moon's square to Mars and opposition to Pluto on the 30th is actually even more difficult than the actual Mars square Pluto on July 1st. Why? Because it acts like a trigger. I think it'll take some of the intensity off of the energy that would have happened on July 1st. But regardless of what day it happens, on Thursday, June 30th, and Friday, July 1st, we have some rather nasty energy up there. Pluto and Mars are indicative of being in an unsafe neighborhood. There's a cosmic neighborhood. Why? Because the planet of war, assertion, aggression, passion is at odds with the planet of domination, the planet of potency, the lord of the hell realms. And so we have some very deep power struggles that we've been seeing under play. I mean, I was gonna say all week, all year, but for years. That I think that at the end of this month, the beginning of July, can come out in another layer. And that brings us right up to the weekend. Oh, there's another thing that on July 1st, the day that Mars squares Pluto, the sun also makes a sesqui-square. That's a square and a half. And they kind of work like they're not so much weak squares as they're like pickies. They're almost like Virgo squares. They're more exacting. They're a higher frequency. But the sun's square and a half. A square is 90 degrees. A half a square is 45 degrees. A square and a half is 90 plus 45 is 135 degrees. That occurs on Friday morning. And this brings Saturn back into the picture. And so there's something holding back. And there's also this incredible power play going on. And again, this power play, this power struggle between Mars in blow it out into the open, let's just take it all on, let's just do it, and Pluto in Capricorn, which is this slow disintegration, deconstruction of those things which we thought were stable and were the structure that we lived within. As these two things go into that 90-degree angle, we can expect another layer of intense power struggle that's going on. And again, that may happen individually, emotionally, in a relationship with our parents, our kids, our lover, our spouse, our relatives, our employer. It may happen in our personal lives, but we'll also see this on the national and international political scene, however that plays out, whether this has something to do with what happens in the Russia-Ukrainian war, or whether what's happening in the United States political scene, whether it's Roe versus Wade or whether it's the January 6th commission. I mean, whatever it is, we're going to see this kind of build to another layer of not so much explosive, but really people are playing for keeps. And there's more stuff going on beneath the surface that's now coming out as this power play becomes apparent or obvious. It's an intense week, and then by Saturday, Mercury moves into square Neptune. And again, it's like no one knows who's telling the truth. It's like impossible to discern what's going on. And then the last day of the week, I know we end on Sunday. We have Venus and Mercury both making aspects to Pluto and Mars. And it's like that whole thing becomes, it's like it doesn't get to settle down. And of course, this leads right into Independence Day in the United States. And I have no prediction about that because that actually falls in someone else's territory. It's next week. I'm relieved of that one.
And you all know we're kidding when we talk about that, right? The whole contract thing. I actually had someone
Oh, no.
responded in the comments and was like, "Why are you putting so many restrictions on the astrologers? They should be able to." And I was like, "Oh my gosh,
I make that up. Let's just.
we're totally joking. There is no contract. Rick can talk about whatever he wants when he's here." Okay, Rick. So you just described a lot of intensity, a lot around this power struggle thing. I think it's easy to see how this could play out on the world stage, and maybe there's things we don't know about, but there's obvious plot lines happening there. And then in your internal life, you may be able to look at your situation and go, okay, there potential for power struggle here or brewing power struggle there, and I can see how this is going to play out potentially. How, like, what is the higher octave of these aspects in terms of how to productively work with this kind of energy?
Got me.
Really?
No, there are things, but I don't think the solution is as immediate as the pressure of the situation. We're in a longer cycle, and if you remember going back to 2020, looking forward at 2021. Everyone was talking about the Saturn squaring Uranus, the old versus the new, the conservative versus the progressive, the holding on to what we have versus moving into new territory, Saturn squaring Uranus. And even back then, I and certainly many other astrologers said that even though the third and final Saturn Uranus square, which occurred on the eve of Christmas Eve in 2021, that third and final square was over, that Saturn and Uranus would still be with us through 2022, because when Saturn turned retrograde, which it already has, that Saturn will back into a not quite exact square with Uranus. It doesn't quite reach it exactly, but it gets close enough that all those issues are back in front of us. And so what we're seeing with this week with the new moon, with the new moon and with the moon opposing, squaring Mars and opposing Pluto, and the Mars square Pluto, we're seeing the slipping into the reality of the return of the Saturn Uranus square that is going to be with us right up through Election Day in the United States. And although contractually I'm allowed to talk about Election Day, I'm not sure I do, because it's even worse than this particular square. It's not a good day. And again, what's not a good day for someone is a good day for someone else when you have opposing points of view. I don't know how this is going to play out. I just know that the energy going right up through and including Election Day in the United States is going to be part of the playing out of what we're looking at here.
Okay. And you, just for those of you that aren't as familiar with Rick and Rick's astrology, it is very rare for you to say something like that day has bad astrology.
Yeah, I'm the guy who basically says there is no such thing as a bad chart.
Right.
Election Day is a bad chart.
Okay. All right. So that just gives you the caveat in terms of the underscoring what he's trying to say. He does not.
And when I say bad, I mean it's difficult. On Election Day, we have an eclipse that morning.
Wow.
With retrograde Mars, and the eclipse, it's a full moon eclipse, is squaring Saturn. Remember, this is a Saturn-Uranus thing. What does that mean? At this point in time, it's too early to tell. It just means that this Mars square Pluto with the moon in the picture, the end of this month and to the beginning of July, where what we get to do now is part of a larger process. There will be no immediate solution to anything, again, whether it's a problem we have in a power struggle at work, individually, emotionally, at home, or whether we're talking about national, whatever country you may be in, or international politics. There's not going to be a resolution here. So what does that mean? What does that mean for our actions? It means that the only thing we can change ever, this is Buddhism 101, the only thing we can change ever is our awareness. And our awareness changes everything. So it's incumbent upon each and every one of us this week, through the new moon and through that Mars square Pluto is to do whatever we can do to increase our to widen our perspective and to increase our awareness, because it's awareness that will get us out of whatever this mess that we've gotten ourselves into.
All right, Rick. So we have awareness, right? So we can all be aware not only of our own reactions and triggers and responses to the things that are happening, but also just awareness of the astrology. And so that can actually temper expectations. Like you just said, we're kind of in this for the long haul. There's not going to be a quick resolution. So patience and working with the energies in the best way that you can. The other thing that the astrologers on the panel said at the solstice panel that we just had, which by the way is still available for free through the end of the week for those of you that missed it. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel, on the podcast. And one of the things they kept emphasizing was that the energy for the rest of the year is going to be intense, maybe even kind of wild, and that the best thing to do is to do as much as you can to focus on what it is that you can control and let the things out of your control as much as possible. Don't feed your energy to them. Like just stay in what it is yours to do, what you can do, and not get so distracted and pulled off your own course by everything that's happening around you. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that partially.
Mhm.
I think that, and I addressed this with the new moon squaring Jupiter, I think that it's a real danger to overextend our energy in any way, shape, or form. But I also think it's equally a mistake to just sequester ourselves, retreat, build walls around us, and go quiet. That would be the Cancerian part of it. That inaction, one word, not being in action, but inaction is um can be powerful if it's supported by some larger game plan or supported by actions that one takes that may not be on the surface. In other words, Cancer is the sign Cancer is an incredibly powerful and initiating sign of change. We tend to think of it as just, pulling back and being invisible. But actually, the real strength of Cancer is making change on the surface without necessarily being seen as part of that change. And this is really, I think, part of the lesson of this new moon, and part of the whole idea of being invisible is not being ineffective. It's not being inactive. It's just not wasting our action on only holding placards and making a lot of noise. Not that that can't be important at certain times. It is. But the idea here is that with awareness, we can work at many different levels. And I think that becomes an important consideration here. So I guess what I would say, Amanda, is that the idea of saying this is too big, I can't do anything about it, I'm going to block it out and ignore it, is not necessarily what I'm saying is the highest cause. Some people do that. Some people have to do that. We all do what we need to do. Bless them. However, that we certainly can be involved without necessarily yelling and screaming every moment of the day. Just because we feel something, it's not incumbent upon us to tell everyone how we feel always. It's important to feel how we feel always. And that may involve perceiving things that we don't necessarily want to perceive. I know people go, well, I don't watch the news. Ignorance is bliss. No, ignorance is ignorance. Bliss is temporary. That's my philosophy. It doesn't mean that it needs to be yours.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think there's a difference because what you're talking about is discernment, discernment of
Yes,
how
yes.
much energy, when you spend your energy. It's different than just don't spend energy,
Which is
period.
a higher vibration of Saturn, is not saying no, it's discernment.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to teach live with Jeff Jower when he was alive. Jeff, one of Jeff's favorite lines was, "Saturn is the planet who says no but means yes." And I always used to say, he doesn't mean on a date, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but understanding that that's what Saturn's job is. It's not just to say no, it's to discern so we don't waste energy saying yes when it's premature, when we're not ready, and so it's about discernment. I agree with you completely. But you can only have discernment when you have a wider perspective, which comes from awareness. And there are people who go, I'm not going to read this book because I know I don't want to know what's in it. I'm not going to watch this interview on television because I don't want to know. Why? Because if they know, then that changes their awareness and then they may have to do something.
Mm. One thing to add to your no, Saturn says no, but means yes. And I think this is what you were saying anyways, that basically when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. So sometimes,
Yes, and you're also saying no, not yet.
yes, yes. But like, for example, sometimes saying no to a person or a project or a trip or, whatever it is saying yes to something else. It's saying yes to yourself. It's
It's
saying
back
yes.
to discernment. Back
Yeah,
to discernment.
exactly. Back to
You can't,
discernment.
if you say yes to everything, you're really saying no to everything because you can't do it. And
Exactly.
that's
And
the temptation of the new moon square Jupiter, is to say yes before you even know what the deal is.
okay, to say yes before you know what the deal is. Okay, I'm going to do the little summary of basically what you said, which
Good
in
luck.
essence, I know, in essence, the beginning of the week is today. We have this opportunity to create some structure and organization. It's a little bit of a reality check. So okay, here's information, here's the reality of where things are. How can you organize, structure, and rescaffold in order to support this new understanding of reality, essentially? And one of the things you said is that it's almost like a call to arms, that it could be heavy and real and not that much fun. And yet we're going to need it. So we're going to need this sort of call to arms and like huddle up and how do we do this differently? We're going to need that throughout the week. We have the new moon on Tuesday and we have Neptune turning retrograde. And this is kind of emphasizing this, what is truth, what is delusion, misconception, but it also can be this higher calling and dreams and imagination. And then we have Jupiter kind of blowing up that energy and making it even bigger. So you just said what we need to keep in mind, I think, as the takeaway from that is don't say yes to everything.
Right. And the
Yeah.
blowing up is not it's
Right.
two different types of blowing up.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're Uranian. Whenever you talk about Uranus, that's the real like
That's
surprise
the other
blow up.
blowing up. That's the explosive blowing up. This is the
Exactly.
gradual blowing up.
Of like the balloon. I love how you always use the balloon for Jupiter. Yeah. Okay. So
And incidentally, Amanda, the balloon for Jupiter works because you can only blow a balloon up so far until it reaches Saturn. If you tried to blow it up any further, then it Uranuses. It pops, it explodes.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. So they're kind of working together in that expansive energy, but just different angles of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in this, the key is to have the awareness of whatever you're committing to or whatever you're saying yes to have the awareness and discernment. And in order to be able to be discerning, you need to have more information. Maybe you don't have that right now. So the inclination or drive to just say yes, temper that, check yourself, make sure that you're saying yes to things that you actually have enough information about if you are saying yes. But also be aware of the tendency to over yes right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Over
So
yes. I like that. Over yes.
over yes. Don't okay, do your inner work. And you said wait. I said I love this, that quote that you gave about what I can do is I can think, I can fast, and I can wait. Just knowing this is a period of time. It is not forever, that it's okay to wait. It's okay to not take action right in this second, that it might be better for you to hold back a little bit. You said don't waste energy, act subtly, gently, allow to think of extreme potentials. See, that's another key you added in there, a little caveat. Allow yourself to think of these extreme potentials, or to dream or imagine what could happen if you said yes, but don't necessarily say yes yet.
I can think, but I can wait.
Right. I can think, but I can wait. Okay. On Wednesday, you said it's subtle, but there's more going on than meets the eye. And then you essentially said that Thursday and Friday are extraordinarily intense. Thursday potentially being even more intense than Friday, that there are more difficulties, triggers, that, oh, I'm sorry, the aspects on Thursday are what's triggering the difficulties and the intensities of July 1st, which is the next day. You said it's like nasty energy, being in an unsafe neighborhood, deep power struggles, things getting blown into the open, a slow disintegration, deconstruction, and expect another layer of intense power struggle. Sounds real fun.
Well, and I would say one other thing in all of this, and that is what we don't know is not as dangerous as what we don't know we don't know.
Okay. Again, a lot of emphasis on some of this subtlety and things happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of. Sometimes for me, just knowing that is enough. It's like, this is what it appears on the surface. This is what I'm being told. This is what I am aware of in the moment.
Yeah.
And I also know that I don't know the whole story. I don't know everything that's happening. And so that is definitely the times where I go, okay, so I'm just going to wait until either I know more, or I know enough, or it's more clear, because right now it's just not clear, Yeah. Okay. You said we're in a longer cycle, that this is a little bit like a precursor to this Saturn Uranus almost exact square that's going to be happening in the fall.
It's less a precursor than it is a turning point. I guess precursor would work.
Well, but I get what you're saying. There is a difference there. A precursor is like what we're experiencing now is going to be kind of the same as but
Exactly.
You're saying it's a turning point of the energy of the year where we're sort of building up to that in the fall.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. You said when we change our awareness, we do what we can do, and that Cancer is a sign of change. And again, don't waste your energy. Don't waste your action. Doesn't mean don't take action. Just don't do actions that are just wasting and draining your energy and not having the kind of impact that you want them to have. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Rick, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate and always love your forecasting ability.
It's an intense week.
Yeah. I mean, it's the perfect time to have you here with us. So thank you. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
there's opportunity.
There's times where we just need to be told like it is. I mean, we always need to be told like it is, but especially when it's not always the news we want to hear, but with the tools and the ideas and the perspectives that we can do it. Like, we can actually work through this. We've been through a lot of really challenging transits in the last few years. And I know for many of you, like throughout your life, and we can do it. And being as centered in yourself as possible is really important, because then from that place, you have a lot more capability to handle a lot more things. Yeah. Okay. If you want support with that, the inner circle is a great place for you to get support with all these different rising and rising tides and all the different volatility and the things that are going to be coming up. If you want to go really, really deep with that astrology, have a very intimate community in which to explore it, have things that support you throughout these kinds of months. We do soul work, which is essentially the astrologers are assigning practices. Like, here's the energy. Here's a practice that you can do that will help you with this specific energy. It not only helps you learn about the energy, but then it also helps you learn how to work with the energy. Of course, every astrologer is also giving you a mastery class teaching that's giving you more techniques and tools to take your astrology to the next level. One of the things that I love hearing from our members is that they feel a deeper sense of belonging, connection, meaning, and purpose in their lives by being a part of the inner circle. So it really is taking your astrological studies and making it something that's a part of your life, making the community a central point of your support network, and really having these incredible astrologers and peers at your side as you navigate life with the stars. Yeah. So that's at astrologyhub.com/innercircle22. The final date to join is on the 30th, which, as Rick says, is basically the most intense day of potentially the year. So that would be a good chance for you to join in and say yes. If you feel like you don't have enough to say yes yet, make sure that you check out the page. Send us an email at support@astrologyhub.com. If you're taking the astrological guidance from this week and going, I need to be discerning with my energy. I need to be discerning with where I commit. Just ask us the questions that you have. We're here to help. We're here to answer those questions and help you make the right decision for you. So you can always send us an email at support@astrologyhub.com and our team will help you. And we only want people in the program that it's right for also. But if you are kind of like, God, I would love to know more about how to do it. I'd love to have access to that same kind of magic that Rick has access to. Then it's great for you. So, okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Rick, I hope you continue to feel better and better. And we're going to have you again this week for the July forecast on the Cosmic Connection.
That's right.
Yeah. So tune into that on Thursday, which is also what you said, the most intense day of the year.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Definitely. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. And thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. See you in a few days, Rick. Thank you. Hi there, astrology lover. It's Amanda from Astrology Hub, and I'm so excited to let you know that we've officially opened the doors to our flagship membership program, The Inner Circle. For over 5 years, we've been gathering every month to learn astrology from the best astrologers in the world. The Inner Circle is guided by a new astrologer teacher each month who teaches a mastery class on their top chart reading technique and provides live forecasts. Not to mention so many amazing bonuses like cosmic updates sent directly to your phone, live chart reading demonstrations, and 20% off discounts on all Astrology Hub products. We have some very special astrologers lined up for the rest of 2022, including Adam Summer, Christopher Renstrom, Jen Zart, and more. Don't miss out on joining a private community of thousands of like-minded astrology students. We only open 2 times per year. Go to astrologyhub.com/innercircle22 to learn from the masters and transform your life in the process. I can't wait to welcome you on the inside.